Good morning, everyone. We're just going live on Facebook here. And so I'm just going to take a moment to check and make sure everything is working as it should. And it looks like we are good to go. So thank you to those who are here with me in the Zoom room as we're doing the Fireside chats via a Zoom broadcast, so that anybody who's joining via Zoom gets a little bit of opportunity to chat one-on-one after the Zoom meeting. And thank you to those who are joining us live on Facebook today. So either place that you are, you can go ahead and pop a question or a comment in the chat box, and I will check it. If it's in Zoom, I'll see it quicker than if it's on Facebook, but I'll take a moment in a little while to check back over to Facebook and check if there's any comments or questions. So thank you for being here today. In Nebraska, where I live, we are leaning a little bit towards fall weather, so it's a little cooler here today. Some of the leaves are changing colors, and it's been a beautiful changing of the seasons so far. Our fireside chat topic today is on forgiveness. And as I pondered what would be important to bring to you this week, it just really struck me that forgiveness is one of those things that weighs us down until we really grasp the power of it, or should I say, not forgiving weighs us down. And I can think of a lot of scenarios during my lifetime for myself and others where they allowed angerness and bitterness and resentment to really eat at them and drive their actions, of even actions of revenge, of trying to get justice and revenge, and how that just really consumed the individuals that I'm thinking of, really just like physically, and it kind of took over their whole life, and in some circumstances almost even cost them relationships with their family and some friends. And so I think that forgiveness is a really key subject that we have to grasp in order to move forward and live our one wild, wonderful life. And that's what I'm committed to. I'm committed to being here to inspire you to take action to live your one wild, wonderful life. So the inspired action today that I want to move you to is forgiveness. So as we're having this conversation today, I'd just like you to be open to allowing any situation or person to surface in your mind that there might be some unresolved issues with, and someone that you might need to use some practice in forgiving with. And at the end of our chat today, I'm going to give you a process to help you walk through for forgiveness. When I think back to who are the people who've inspired me on my path, people who so completely and deeply embraced forgiveness, the one person that comes to mind for me is Louis Zamperini. I don't know if you are familiar with Louis or not, but if you're not, I'd suggest look him up. And there's actually a book was written on his life called Unbroken. And it's the story of how he was a POW in World War II, and He actually, after his plane was shot down, he was on a life raft for 47 days. And that, I believe, if I remember correctly, was the longest anybody had ever survived floating out on the ocean in a raft with no food, no water, no sustenance. And he tells the story about how he saw land coming and how, excited he was that he was almost to land, which was in his mind like he was just about to make it there. And how when he got to land, it was Japanese land he had floated to, and how he was then captured and taken, and for the next 2 years was a prisoner of war in Japanese POW camps, and many, many, many hardships that he lived through during that time. And one gentleman called the Bird was someone who just really felt like, his whole life mission was there um, to make him miserable. So I just we've got a lot of noise happening in my neighborhood today. The neighbor decided to mow his lawn, and I guess now they are testing out the PA system at the football field next to me. So if you hear some music in the background, we're just going to enjoy that music while it goes on. But that's what they're doing, is they're like testing out the PA system for an event later on today, I guess. So I have a little bit of background music to enjoy our conversation. So anyway, Louis Zamperini eventually was released, and he was really consumed by this hatred and this desire. He really wanted to kill the Bird, and he was just, consumed by all of the things that he had experienced, and wanting revenge for those things. And there came a point in his life where he heard a message on how forgiveness could shape his life. And he made the choice at that point in time to embrace forgiveness and go through the process of forgiving these people that really had tormented his life in the worst possible ways. And he had claimed that he would never, ever reset foot on the island of Japan. But as he was embracing forgiveness, someone mentioned to him one day that a lot of people were visiting Europe and re-embracing the healing and reconciliation in Europe, but that not many were visiting Japan. And at that point in time, he decided to visit, to go back. And it was almost unheard of, because he had sworn that he would not ever set foot back there. And he ended up going back and actually having a meeting, face-to-face meeting, with many of the guards that had been part of holding him captive. Now, the gentleman called the Bird was in hiding. He was in hiding for fear of being charged with war crimes, and was not part of that meeting. And in later years, he actually did come out of hiding and had said he would meet Louis face to face, but that meeting never took place. So Louis was able to embrace forgiving these people that did the most heinous things to him. And even then, in the Olympics that took place in Japan, he was actually one of the torchbearers. And I believe he was in his 80s at that point in time, where he actually carried the torch past the one of the places that was very near where he was imprisoned. So the whole journey of how he was able to shift, forgive these people, and then the impact that forgiveness had not only on his life, but the lives of so many people and that have shared his story. It's had an impact on me, and I'm sure it's had an impact on everyone who's read that story. So there's some things that I draw from his story is that, one, it doesn't matter how heinous the thing that is that has happened to you. And we've all had different levels of hurts that we've experienced that we need to forgive. And I want to interject here that quite often the biggest person that we have to forgive is ourselves. For me, that has probably been true. Forgiveness has most been important to extend to myself. We'll talk about that more a little bit later, but forgiveness, no matter what the incident, it could be something very small where um, I know someone I was recently listening to, a gentleman who wrote the book, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. And it's actually his process we're going to talk about on forgiveness. But he talks about a coach in high school who had made him stand for hours in one spot as a punishment for something. And that was part of someone that he needed to forgive. So it could be anyone from a parent, a coach, a friend who maybe has wronged you along the way, or just some barb that has lodged in your soul that it's really time to pull that barb out and let it go. And one of the questions I sometimes get is, does that person need to be alive for me to forgive them? And I say, no, it doesn't matter whether that person is here physically or not, because the process of forgiveness really doesn't even involve that person physically. The process of forgiveness is you releasing what's inside of you and shifting your perspective and actions. One of my favorite quotes on forgiveness is, not forgiving is like drinking poison, hoping the other person will die. You know what? You holding a resentment or a grudge against someone else is probably not impacting their life in any way, shape, or form, but it is impacting your life. It can be slowly, bit by bit, poisoning you. So I want to say forgiveness happens in layers, and it happens when we're ready and have the resources and ability to forgive. Sometimes we're in a space where we just have to be in the space that we're at, um, until we can be in the space of being ready to forgive. Maybe at our finest and maybe most practiced state of forgiveness, we can find that instantaneously for someone who has hurt us. But I think it's a journey, and it's a kind of a unlayering and a peeling of an onion. If you think of how an onion is layered, that we forgive at the level that we're at on the surface. And then once that layer is peeled away, we will find another layer of space. So if you feel like you've gone through a forgiveness process for someone already in your life, but yet there still seems to be a hook or a barb or an emotion attached, there's probably another layer of forgiveness that your soul's calling you to go through. And there might be more and more to that. But I really want to encourage you, there is an end to that. And at times I know it can feel like overwhelming, like there's so much to heal from, so much to work through, that we might never get through that. But if we're intentional about working through that, there is an end to it. And that end can free us up to a very beautiful space and a very beautiful life. So that's the next thing I wanted to talk to you about. When we're carrying hurt, resentment, anger, bitterness around, whether it's towards someone else or ourselves, it's like carrying a pack of heavy, heavy stones on our back. And our attention is focused more backwards towards that heavy, heavy pack that we're carrying, instead of to what our true brilliance and possibility is in our life moving forwards. And it's not until we're able to, one by one, take those stones out of that pack and throw them away and release them, that we're truly able to stand in a space of embracing one true peace and contentment and happiness, being in the moment, being in that space. And it's not until we let go of that pack that we really can be freed to move forward and live a really spectacular life that is true and authentic to us and to our gifts. And that's what we all want, right? We want to know that we matter, that we're worthwhile, that we are worthy. And I want to let you know that you are worthy. You are worthwhile just as you are and as the person that you are right now. And finding that space of forgiveness will free you to live a life that is truly much more meaningful and impactful than you could ever imagine. And it frees you to look forward to your future and to now take the steps that you need to take in the moment to reach your beautiful future. So I wonder if while we've been chatting, you've had some situations come to mind that are up needing forgiveness in your life. And so I'm going to walk you through this process. And it's a process that is you can learn more about from the book The Code of the Extraordinary Mind. And I'll put the name of the author in the comments below when we're done today. So the first step in that is really being prepared, and preparation is making a list of the people that you feel have wronged you, whether it's recently or in the past, and just letting those names come to you and jotting them down as they come. And then there's a four-step process to go through once you have the names of those individuals. It's setting the scene. So step number one is setting the scene. And you want to have a timer handy for this process too, because we don't want to linger too long in each step, because the step is just to go there to get reconnected and then to let it go. So setting the scene, number one, is 2 minutes of feeling yourself at the action you need to forgive. So taking yourself back to a moment that involves the hurt that is in need of forgiveness, and bringing forward the person mentally, bringing them forward into the space with you that you need to give, and only staying in that space of bringing them forward for 2 minutes or less, and then allowing yourself to move on to step two. So as you see that person in front of you, fully allow yourself to feel the emotions of what that person has done to you. Um, maybe it requires you just verbally out loud saying all the hurts that has come from that experience and that it's caused in your life. This can also be done as a forgiveness letter or a feelings letter. So this stage is the feelings letter. And we really have to allow ourselves to feel the feelings connected, and to bring those things out of our soul. They are like the toxins in our soul that need to come up and out. And you may find it easier to say those things out loud to the person, or you may find it easier to write your feelings in a letter. Either way is okay. And then step three is forgive into love and see that person in front of you, but try to have compassion for yourself and for that person. What did you learn from this situation? How did it make you a better person? Or how can it make you a better person? If you would openly embrace and look for the positive lessons that this situation has brought into your life, what are the possibilities that you could do with the learnings from this situation? Now, again, here, you may want to write a forgiveness letter. Very, very powerful to write a forgiveness letter. Again, this letter is not to be shared with the person that you're forgiving. It's only for you, and it's just a cleansing of your soul. And as we're going to see in a little bit, if you choose to write a letter, then burning that letter can be a very, very powerful cleansing process for you. And step number 4 is focus on the person that wronged you. What pain or anguish could that person have gone through to make them do this? It's seeing them through a different lens. I want to remind you that hurt people hurt people. And anytime someone inflicts pain on you, they're most likely doing that because of the pain that they have experienced in their own life. Now, I want to say that doesn't make it right for them to do that. It's not an excuse for them to do that, but it's a different way of seeing what's happening. Maybe they were hurt in childhood. Maybe they're operating from the only map of life that they know. It was very powerful for me in the process of forgiving my ex-husband after we were divorced, for me to understand that we were both hurt people coming into a relationship, and we were both operating from the point of how we were raised. And if you're not raised in a situation of understanding the best way to treat people and take care of people in your life, then you're going to operate from the only map that you know. And that's what happened for me, is that we were both operating from a faulty map of how relationships worked and how people were treated in life. And so when I was able to see that my ex-husband, he was doing the best he could at the point in time. He was doing all, the only thing that he knew how to do from how he was raised. And I also was doing what I knew from my experiences. Now, awareness and choice are two things that move us forward out of hurting toxic situations. So once I became aware, I made the choice to not stay in that situation. So forgiveness also doesn't mean allowing someone to continue negative behavior towards you. It does mean now loving yourself enough to not put yourself in a space of being repeatedly hurt or taken advantage of. And it also doesn't mean that you shouldn't hold accountable the person who has wronged you. If it's something that they've done that is illegal and needs to reported to authorities, or is a case of sometimes in the workplace we experience things where there is true discrimination happening, and it can be a painful, extremely painful process for the person having experienced that discrimination to hold those people accountable. It's at a cost to their own life, and so you can find forgiveness in that space while still holding people accountable. And another good resource on that is a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, where he talks about going through processes of holding people accountable, yet standing in a space uh, of forgiving them during that process. So understanding that everybody was doing the best they could at the point in time. And when you have new information, then you have the right and the responsibility to do something with that information, to move yourself to a new space. And going through this process and letting go of the hurt and forgiveness can free you to a new space. You can move to a space of what I call being unflappable, where when you are truly at peace and in touch with yourself, nothing anyone says or does can bother you. You can really stand in that space of allowing things not to lodge as a barb in your soul and allowing them to just really move forward and on. And feeling like these things allow you to liberate you. A quote by Neil Donald Walsh says, "The universe has sent you nothing but angels." That quote really embraces the fact that everything that you've experienced in your life can be reshaped to be used for positive, for the good. So, how can you take the hurts that you've been carrying around on your back that can feel so weighty, so crushing, and now use this 4-step process that I've given you to free your soul? It takes time. It takes literal, like physical time to go through this process. It might take an hour, it might take a day, it might take weeks. So, one of the things I encourage you to do is consistently block off periods of time for you to work through these processes. As I mentioned, forgiving myself has been one of the biggest rewards in my own life. And that's a continual process too. So this week was a challenge for me. It was a struggle. I had didn't feel good a lot of the week, and in not feeling good, I didn't get accomplished work-wise what I wanted to, and it really took me to a tough space for the week. And as I thought about one acceptance of where I was at in the moment, and then as I moved through that, also thinking, okay, I don't need to forgive myself for um, being so hard on myself. You know what? When you don't feel good, it's your body's signal to telling you that something is going on, that it needs your attention and love. So accepting that I could just allow my body to heal and be at peace, and then forgiving myself for not accomplishing what I wanted to, and then being so hard on myself is no purpose, um, no use of it. So as I always work to embrace the messages that I bring, I have also written a forgiveness letter this week. And this forgiveness letter I've written for myself and to myself. And part of what I realized when I wasn't feeling good this week is it allowed some things to bubble up to the surface from very, very long ago, some very, very negative messages about being sick, and messages that needed to come up and out. So I've put those also in here to forgive the people who instilled those messages in my soul, and I don't want them any longer to be there. And so I'm going to just allow that that to burn on the fire and to burn away. And it's such a freeing process to allow those words and those feelings to burn, that I do encourage you include forgiveness letters, feelings letters in part of your process for forgiveness. So I hope this message has been powerful for you today. And I would love for you to put in the comments a note about what you're going to take away from this conversation today and what you're going to implement. I'm just going to pop over to the Facebook page and see if there are any comments that that we need to
and what you're
look
going
at.
to implement.
And I see Cecilia is here watching. So thank you for being here watching. And I appreciate you being here today. And Danielle being live on Zoom, and all the rest of you that are live watching. So thank you. And I'm going to sign off for today. And for those of you in the Zoom room, you can just hold tight as I end the live stream here.